Hey, I'm Paul Rabelais, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to scam-proof your estate. So in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've had a lot of people come in the office and ask me a question like, Paul, I don't want to get scammed in the future. How do I make sure that I can set things up so nobody takes advantage of me or takes something away from what I want to leave to my children? So you've all heard about, the scam examples out there when it comes to estate planning. You've heard about people who have maybe not quite in their right mind, and as they get older, they put their assets in someone else's name, or they're kind of seduced or influenced into writing a new will or a trust amendment, leaving their estate to people other than their children or people other than who they really wanted to get it in the big picture. Heck, and I made this video today because I came this close to getting scammed today. Not a big leave my estate to somebody else scam, but I came this close to getting scammed. Let me just tell you real quick what happened. You watch out for it. Over the last couple of days, I got a couple of voicemails that says, call this 1-800 number to avoid your power getting disconnected. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I have another piece of property, not this house, but I have another piece of property, and my wife got a new card, and maybe just something messed up with her old card that expired, and I guess my energy bill was connected to that one, so I'll call them up. So I called them up, and I got the guy on the phone, and he was like, we sent you 2 disconnection notices. Let me let you talk to my supervisor. So his supervisor gets on the phone, foreign accents. And I had it on speakerphone with myself and my wife and my 23-year-old son, who's a smart guy. He's on the law review at Tulane Law School. And they kind of wouldn't let me pay the bill right away. And my son was like, Dad, just tell him you want to pay the bill and get it, current. But they wouldn't let me. And finally they asked me, they said, we need to verify what was the last 2 bills that you paid, because we show that the last 2 months haven't been paid, but we need to verify that, what the 2 months prior to that you did pay were. What was that amount? And I was like, I don't know. It was on auto pay, and they said, we'll wait. Go look at your bank statements. And so we looked at the bank statements, and I told them what the last 2 bills that we paid, August and September. And they wanted that information so that they could make up a figure of what I owed them for the previous 2 months. And so they did. They told me I owed them like $1,299. I had my card out ready to make the payment to them. And my wife was there and my son was there. So it's not just me. I'm not crazy. So finally they said something like, well, this payment, we can't take a credit card or a debit card. You have to go pay in cash at the nearest Dollar General. I'm like, what? And I turned to my son, I said, is this a scam? So he got to work quickly. He Googled the phone number that I had called, and sure enough, popped right up. Top of Google page 1 was, when you call this number, it's a scam. It's not an energy company. They're trying to scam you. So anyway, hung up the phone real quick, and that's how easy it is to get scammed these days. And I guess that's how good these people are. I didn't think I was susceptible of being scammed, much less on the speakerphone with myself, my wife, who also is sharp, and my son, who also is sharp. We were ready to give them money. So it kind of fired me up to make this video on how to scam-proof your estate. Okay, now, some people, just let me get this one out of the way. Some people say, well, you can avoid getting scammed. You just have to sign a power of attorney giving somebody you trust power to do stuff for you. That doesn't do it. I mean, if Dad signs a power of attorney, giving power of attorney to his very responsible, very trusted son, that doesn't prevent Dad from going out and writing a new will or giving his stuff away. It just means the son can transact for him, but it also means Dad can still transact for himself. So kind of the power of attorney thing doesn't do a bit of good to prevent someone from getting scammed. And again, this video is really about how do I protect my estate from myself? How do I protect myself from doing something stupid? I'm starting to get a little bit forgetful, people tell me. I don't do anything that would want to do anything that would harm my children or would interrupt me leaving my estate that I've worked so hard to build to my children. I want to make sure I do what I can, even if I got to do something extra, to make sure that I don't slip up and do something stupid or do something silly or do something where I got adversely influenced by some third party who was trying to take advantage of me. That's what this is about. All right, so in one of the instances that I worked with in the last month, what we did was the couple, really, really close family, 2 kids, all very, very close. And they arranged their trust. Well, let me go over kind of what's normal to do, even when getting scammed is not one of those objectives that you're trying to accomplish. It is very common for a married couple to set things up so that when one spouse dies, that spouse's share of the estate or the trust becomes irrevocable, and the surviving spouse can't leave that spouse's share, or the surviving spouse can't leave the deceased spouse's share to someone else. They can't give it away to someone else. It's fixed that when the surviving spouse dies, that first spouse to die share got to go to the kids. So that's actually common, and there have been some estate tax reasons why couples set it up that way to keep the assets of the first spouse to die from being lumped into the estate of the surviving spouse. So that's common. But when people want to be a little more proactive in making themselves and their estate scam proof, they might do what a couple did just in the last week or two in my office. They wanted to arrange their joint trust so that when one of them died, the children would step in as co-trustees with the surviving spouse, even for the surviving spouse's share, so that the surviving spouse couldn't, make any large distributions, or couldn't give trust property away, and couldn't change where the trust was going to go without the written cooperation and consent of the 2 children, who of course had the parents' best interests in mind. So that was one scenario. And then we get the single people, or the surviving spouse. That's when people start to get worried that they might do something silly. When you got a married couple, they can kind of check on each other, but when one spouse dies and that surviving spouse is kind of alone, older, susceptible to influence, that's when sometimes we have to get serious. And so that single person will often set up a trust, and maybe they'll name themselves as a co-trustee with one or more of the children, or maybe that single person doesn't even want to be a trustee. They trust their child so much to be the trustee that older person will set up a trust, and the trust is for that older person for the rest of the older person's life, and nothing goes anywhere until that older person dies. But they name perhaps a son or a daughter as the trustee, so that that older person, and I hate to use the word older person, but that's what it is, can't be influenced into doing something without the trustees' participation and cooperation. And then they'll put their home and they'll put their investments in that trust. And that's what protects those assets from being scammed. Now, maybe that older person may keep the checking account in their name where they can do whatever they want to with it. But maybe there's only $10,000 or so in the checking account, and the $500,000 or the $1 million or whatever it is in that trust, really protected from being scammed because a child or some other trusted person is a trustee or a co-trustee. So that's one way to do it, but that typically in most scenarios doesn't solve all of the problems, because worked with a family last week, and a big portion of the money that the parent had was in their IRA, and you can't put an IRA in a trust. So that's a bigger problem when someone has a large IRA and they're worried about being manipulated into perhaps changing the beneficiary designation. Let me get something else out of the way, because there's a lot written about irrevocable trusts as beneficiaries of an IRA. But you can have all of the irrevocable trusts in the world as the beneficiary of your IRA, but that doesn't prevent you from being scammed and changing your beneficiary designation. Naming an irrevocable trust as a beneficiary of your IRA is much different than an irrevocable beneficiary designation, which I ran this situation by a couple of the larger financial institutions that we deal with, and they don't allow irrevocable beneficiary designations. Yes, they allow irrevocable trusts to be beneficiaries of IRAs, but people can change their beneficiary anytime. So just understand that distinction there. So what this family was doing, yes, we're taking all of the non-IRA assets and putting them into that trust where they're protected from being scammed. But the IRA, the family is considering maybe taking out more than the required distribution out of that IRA, paying the taxes and moving those after-tax proceeds into that trust where the child is the co-trustee with the parent. And, you know, quite frankly, just in the last week or so, it may make more sense to do that, because on the old days, the pre-2020 days, it was, you know, forbidden to take more than the required minimum distributions, because tax was going to be deferred for maybe another 40 or 50 years after the parent died and left it to the child who had maybe a 40-year life expectancy. But now under the new Secure Act, which took effect on January 1st of 2020, once a parent dies, all the money's got to come out of the IRA and get taxed within 10 years after the parent's death. So you're probably going to see more people taking more than the required distributions out of their IRA, and maybe for this reason of getting it in from a situation where a parent could be scammed into changing the beneficiary to an arrangement where a parent is a co-trustee or not a trustee at all of a trust where the parent can't be scammed into diverting those trust assets somewhere else. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this scam stuff. I think we're just scratching the surface. You know, people are living older and there's a lot more dementia and Alzheimer's going on, and there's a lot more scammers out there, unfortunately. I can't believe I almost got scammed today out of $1,300. And again, I repeat that I had my wife and my son right there with me every step of the way, ready to give some crazy goofball $1,300 until he told me I needed to go to the Dollar General and pay in cash. So there's not much out there on the internet on scam proofing your estate. But I think we're going to see more as these things develop. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to this channel so you don't miss anything. If you don't want to get scammed and you feel like I gave you some value, give it a thumbs up, and then share this information. There's a share button on your screen where you can share it either by text or email to friends, family, and colleagues who you want to make sure kind of are in a position to be able to be ready in case they get scammed and not get taken advantage of. So weird day, almost got scammed. At the same time that I was considering making a video on how to scam proof your estate. Just a reality of life these days, unfortunately. Look forward to sharing a lot more information with you. Y'all have a great day.